Kari, thanks for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. I am the front runner here in Arizona and have been since day one, and I'm endorsed by President Trump, and we're doing really well. Our main person that we're looking out for right now is the socialist on the Democrat side, Katie Hobbs. That's who we're focused on.
Let me talk about what we just saw, which was this abortion decision and what it means in the states. Arizona has this trigger law that's similar to Mississippi in that it would criminalize abortions after 15 weeks. But you have a couple of different cities, Phoenix and Tucson, that they say they do not want to move forward with this. They said they're going to push back. And I'm wondering, if you're governor, what do you do about that?
Well, we're going to let the legislature pass the laws to protect the unborn. And we already have these laws on the books, and it's not surprising. We have socialist mayor running Tucson and one running Phoenix, and they're always trying to push back. We will protect the lives of the unborn in Arizona, and it's going to be very difficult for abortion clinics to survive and be open if abortion is illegal in Arizona.
Yeah. Wait, what about these abortion pills? Would you outlaw those or try to?
I think it's really scary that a young, afraid mother could be at home taking a pill and without medical supervision. It could be the end of the mother as well. So I would very much support banning those types of abortion pills.
What do you think the most important issue for your state is?
We've got a couple of important issues. We have a wide open border. We have fentanyl pouring in. We have the cartels with operational control. But that wouldn't be happening if we would have fair, honest elections. And we had a fraudulent election, a corrupt election, and we have an illegitimate president sitting in the White House. And because of that, our border is wide open. 5.5 tons of fentanyl was confiscated last year, enough to kill over 2 billion people. It's a weapon of mass destruction. And that's why we're going to secure that border starting on day one. After I take my hand off the Bible, we are going to issue a declaration of invasion. We're going to finish President Trump's wall, and we're going to send our armed National Guard to the border and stop people from coming across. I've been down there so many times, and people just pour in, and they've got a smile on their face. Because with Joe Biden, they feel they're going to stay here forever, and when I'm governor, they're going back.
Just to circle back, you say that it's an illegitimate president. You say that the election was stolen. You speak a lot about this on the campaign trail, talking about the 2020 election. This is the Arizona House Speaker, Rusty Bowers, testifying in front of Congress last week.
Anywhere, anyone, anytime has said that I said the election was rigged, that would not be true. There was no evidence being presented of any strength. Evidence can be hearsay evidence. It's still evidence, but it's still hearsay. But strong judicial quality evidence, anything that would say to me, you have a doubt, deny your oath. I will not do that.
He's a Republican, he's a Trump supporter, and that's what he said.
He's a rhino, and he hopefully will be defeated. He is an absolute rhino. Karen Fann even admits there were issues with the election, that it can't be certified. And here's what we have. 740,000 ballots that have no chain of custody. They cannot be authenticated, and they should not have been counted. 34,000 ballots that were counted 2, 3, and 4 times. People who moved who still voted in our election. There's a mountain of evidence, and I wish that the corporate media would start covering it instead of putting their head in the sand and acting like it didn't happen. We know what happened here.
Okay.
Just because we have a rhino saying it didn't happen.
I understand what you're saying. The Attorney General obviously has talked about this at length, saying that they instructed U.S. attorneys to pursue any specific credible allegations of substantial fraud, and he found none, including using very colorful language in his testimony. I understand what you're saying, but there have been, as you know, more than 70 court cases where there was not evidence, and there was not any state legislature or governor that failed to certify an election, including your own Republican Doug Ducey.
We did not have any court cases where the evidence was presented. We now have evidence that is admissible in a court of law, and I believe the day will come where we have that court case. We have an AG, Mark Brnovich, who has sat on a mountain of evidence and done nothing, including video evidence. We have the True the Vote evidence. We have people who do not want to uncover the truth about our election, and it makes me wonder if they're afraid they really didn't win in previous elections. But don't worry, because when I'm governor, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
And you think
we will have honest elections.
And you think that Arizona citizens, voters, want to spend a lot of time looking at 2020 instead of looking forward from 2022 and on?
I'm with them every single day. We draw record crowds. Number one issue, because they know every other issue, from inflation to the border being wide open, not being able to afford gas and groceries, all stems from this corrupt election. We want an election day, not an election month. We want paper ballots, and we want to get rid of these electronic voting machines, which is why I'm involved in a federal case right now to get them banned here in Arizona. All we want, Bret, is honest elections for our children and grandchildren. We want honest elections for Democrats, independents, and Republicans. We want to know that when we go to bed on election night, when we wake up the next day, we find out who won before we go to bed, and we can live with that. But we can't keep having elections that nobody can live with, and we can't have this level of fraud anymore.
Understanding that every Republican leader in Washington says that Joe Biden is the legitimate president, everyone. But I understand what you're running on. But
they're sitting there in Washington. They're sitting there in Washington.
Understood.
They're not here in Arizona.
This is what you're running on. I get it.
Journalists to come out here and dig through this.
Let me just ask you one thing. Obviously, as a candidate, you come under scrutiny. The Washington Post has a story today. It says Arizona GOP candidate who criticized drag queens was once a fan, according to a drag queen. This is the quote. Arizona GOP gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake, who has attacked drag queens as dangerous to children, attended the shows of drag queen Richard Stevens for more than 20 years and once hired him to perform at her home. Do you care to address that?
I do care. I actually do care to address that, and I'm really shocked. I'm actually appalled that Fox News would take a defamatory story like that, and we are pursuing legal action against this drag queen. I'm appalled that you would bring that up when you have not talked about our stolen election. You failed to talk about that. We just spent 3
questions, Ms. Lake, talking about this. I just asked you a number of questions about it. I played the Arizona House Speaker.
This is the first of it.
Let's address this story that's in the Washington Post. Every candidate takes tough stories. I'm asking you to respond to it if you'd like to.
I'm happy to address it, but I'm really disappointed in Fox. I thought you were a little better than CNN. This is a person who I covered for decades, 20 years, and he's never been in my home. He says he's been in my home for a drag show. That's ludicrous. He's never been in my home. He's lied. We tried to serve him defamation papers, and he's so shady that we can't even track him down because he's not even welcome at the places that he works.
I'm sorry, but this is the last question I'm going to ask. What about these pictures of you with him, Richard Stevens?
And
what about the Post? I've performed for Kari's birthday. I've performed in her home.
That's not true.
I've performed for her at some of the seediest bars in Phoenix. I don't want to ask these questions. I asked you to address them.
Actually, I think you do want to ask them, but you don't want to ask about 2,000 mules. I think you do want to ask about this. This is absolutely ludicrous. I'm talking about drag shows in schools. This is what triggered this man. Somebody who goes to a drag show with female impersonators is one thing. We don't want our tax money going into drag shows at school.
Okay, I understand what you're making a difference there, but you're saying his allegations are wrong, is what you're saying.
Yes, I am. And I'm really appalled that you would spend time on a false story like that. It's shocking.
Well, I think it's important to have candidates address things that are coming up that might affect a race.
Truly.
And I thought you would appreciate that.
But you didn't ask my opponent, the establishment opponent who was here last week. You didn't ask her about her votes to allow illegal alien students to get a lower tuition than American students. You didn't ask her about the 70+ times that she raised tuition on American students. You didn't ask her any tough questions.
That's not
here
true.
You have me on and you try to bring a defamatory story out. It's really sad. I thought there was hope.
I really appreciate your time. We thought we'd address all issues that are on the table. That is one of them being covered today. We thank you, and we'll cover the primary August 2nd.
Please send reporters out to cover this corrupt election. We would appreciate it.
Thank you. Up next, the